The play-in is done tonight. The playoffs are here tomorrow. What's the most interesting matchup in every series and game left? We'll cover all of it today on Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Friday edition of the Locked On NBA podcast. Everybody filling in today. And I'm Tony East from Locked On Pacers. He's Adam Mares from Locked On Nuggets. Lots of playoff action coming. Play-ins conclude tonight. In the East, we get to see the Bulls and Heat slump into the postseason. The Thunder and Timberwolves. We'll see if someone gets put out of their misery or not there. And the playoffs start tomorrow. I can't wait. Adam, can you wait? I'm so excited for the playoffs this year just because there's so much unknown and so many league-changing series, I feel like, in the first round this year.
I'm more than ready, man. I'll be honest. I started the week excited, and as it's gone on, I've gotten bored.
Look, I floated you my theory about the play-in before this, but, like, the games are fun because they're, like, one really consequential game, but then it's, like, a 39-win team wins, and everyone's like, oh, this is a great 8 seed because they won this consequential game. I'm like, no, they're not. But we'll see if any of those teams can win. We'll cover all the series, including the potential of those play-in teams against their 1 seeds in their conference. But we'll start with those play-in games. Let's go to the Western Conference first. The upcoming rising, oh my gosh, this team's going to be awesome in a couple years, Thunder versus the what in the heck is going on? Every day there's something new. Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll do the biggest matchup from every series and game today on Locked On NBA. Adam, in this game, what do you feel like is the most important, compelling matchup in Thunder Timberwolves?
Well, I have 3 here. The first one is lots of pressure versus none. I think the Timberwolves season hinges on whether or not they can make the playoffs. I mean, that was their goal this year out west. So to fall short, and not just to fall short, but to fall short to a team that's behind you in terms of where they're at in their process would be a really bad sign. I've got Gilgeous-Alexander versus Anthony Edwards, which is just 2 of the most exciting scorers, young scorers and young players in the NBA. Shea stepped up to the plate in the play-in game. Ant did not. So I think that'll be a nice little matchup. And then last, and I think most important, we've just got a big versus little matchup. Who knows how Gobert returns? Who knows what the team is like? What is the vibe like with this team? Those are big questions. But what I do know is the Oklahoma City Thunder are not big. They are tiny. They feature Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams. And who I kind of like, but he's a rookie, and he's not even that big. This is just there's a huge size advantage and opportunity for Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert to dominate the boards, to dominate the paint, and I'm just curious to see if they can do it.
You missed my most compelling matchup in this game, and that's Rudy Gobert versus his own teammates. I have to get the jokes off really well I can. This is a very interesting game for him to return in, during Pelicans Thunder, I tweeted this. So my only tweet the whole game was why isn't Valanciunas touching the ball 100 more times? Because no matter who was playing center for the Thunder, Dario Saric, Jalen Williams, the Jay Lynn Williams, he just put their butt under the rim and scored. And he hurt his ankle with a couple of minutes left, but they had no answers for him, and he only took 9 shots or something. The Wolves have a ton of size that I feel like makes that tricky for OKC, but OKC does all this fancy guard stuff and drives a bajillion times a game. So stylistically, the matchup's really interesting. I think you nailed a lot of the compelling matchups, though. Shea versus Ant, just 2 dudes who just pressure on the rim. The whole game will be completely fascinating.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, Anthony Edwards is a great player. He hasn't been in these moments a whole lot, and I was shocked to see him play as poorly as he did in the last one. I would have penciled him in for, this guy's going to go off. He's going to have a big performance. He's going to dominate. Best player on the court. Wasn't the case at all. So now he gets a chance at redemption. But let me ask you this one. This is a hot take. Let me get hot take Tony over here. Ooh. If we get another Anthony Edwards stinker, will you look at him differently? It's early in his career. There's always time to change the narrative. But I'm saying, will it establish an early narrative?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is dumb to say. This is not actual analysis, but just the vibes of the Wolves just suck. And nothing is right. I'm not going to hold this over anybody yet. I mean, look, he was not good against the Lakers. And you couldn't even tell he was out there. Their whole offense was just gross. The whole fourth quarter, nobody would move. You got to be better than that. So maybe, I guess, But I mean, it just feels like a team problem to me.
I just love this idea of like, Michael Jordan got swept by the Pistons, early in his career. But to be fair, the vibes were just so off. Like the vibes were off with the Bulls, man. They were just off.
I'm telling you, I know it's a stupid. It's not an analysis. It doesn't count as saying. I
You are right. The vibes are off.
I should have just muted my mic and then let you talk. The East play-in.
Hold on. Give a prediction here, Tony. Who's winning?
Oh. Man, it's fascinating. A team with a ton riding on the game versus a team with none riding on the game. Look, the Wolves played well for 40 minutes against the Lakers, and I think that stylistically that might be enough in this game. I'll take the Wolves, just mostly because they're at home, but I don't feel great about it.
I don't have a reason to take the Thunder, but I'm taking the Thunder. I'm taking them. Like you said, it's all about vibes, baby.
Pull it out of your heart. That's a good pick. The East play-in is different in that both teams very much would like to make the playoffs and had the goals of doing so this season. No low expectations teams rolling into this one. Zach LaVine kicked some butt for the Bulls to beat the Raptors. The Heat did nothing right against the Hawks, and now we're here, do or die for two teams who thought they would be there. There's a lot of compelling stuff in this game, but it's the one compelling part of this is that this iteration of the Bulls has 5 games of postseason experience, and this iteration of the Heat has a bleep ton, conference finals, NBA finals, and I think Jimmy Butler is going to be my most compelling matchup, no matter who's on him, but him and DeRozan are going to be a fascinatingly compelling group because of the way they play when the game is slowed down. They're just so much more effective and can control the game in a meaningful way, and from a narrative standpoint, because I'm a sucker for it, DeRozan versus Lowry is going to be awesome. The ex-Toronto teammate guys battling to make it into the postseason. It was going to be fun. As soon as the Heat lost, it was either Raptors versus Lowry or DeRozan versus Lowry. Thank you, NBA, for setting this up for me.
I do like, I'm sentimental as well. I do kind of like that, especially Kyle Lowry, maybe a bit, swan song of sorts. I will say we also have the Jimmy Butler versus the Bulls angle of this, which is
That's right.
Like we also have that reunion here. You lied. You said this. There's lots of compelling matchups here. There's not. You're not really compelled.
Well, okay, like Vucevic and Bam is interesting to me, and LaVine versus the Heat's defense is interesting to me. Like, I think that's all interesting stuff.
The Bulls look so good when they look good, and they look so bad when they look bad. So
yes, they do.
And meanwhile, the Miami Heat are like grinders that I just never think are good. So I don't know. My pick for this one, I'll go Miami Heat, I guess, because I don't know. Miami Heat. I'll take the Heat.
This is one of those lazy, man, look at me with lazy takes. Like if Nikola Vucevic goes like 3 for 5 from deep and makes Bam like take one step farther away from the basket, I think the Bulls win. Like they get some, it might just be that simple in terms of geometry. I'll take the Heat too. They've got the experience. They've been there, done that. Although every game they play is 92-95 with 4 minutes to go. So we'll see if they can pull out another one like that. The winner of OKC Minnesota gets to play the team you cover, the Denver Nuggets, in the first round. Not as many compelling matchups, depending on which team wins that game. What's compelling to you with either matchup the Nuggets could get there?
Well, Denver is really bad at containing perimeter drives, and the Thunder are the best in the NBA at driving. So there is a little bit of a stylistic mismatch there. The difference is there's also a mismatch when Jokic doesn't have a true center to go against. He tends to dominate. He tends to dominate against real centers too. But when you put up a rookie undersized center on him and Jalen Williams, or maybe if JRE comes back or any of those guys that they can Dario Saric, I'm sorry, that's not going to work against the 2-time MVP. So I think Oklahoma City is the easier of the two matchups for Denver, even if I think Shea would average 35 points per game in that series. And then on the other side, look, Karl-Anthony Towns versus Nikola Jokic is always fun. It's not necessarily a question about which player is better, but when those guys go head-to-head, Karl-Anthony Towns gets up for that matchup. So I think that would make for a very good sort of mano-a-mano matchup. And then let's not forget, Tim Conley goes there. Chris Finch comes from Denver. He was one of Michael Malone's assistants in the early go of the Michael Malone era. So there are some – and then again, either Minnesota or Oklahoma City, these are Northwest Division opponents, so they know each other very well. And I think that angle of it is maybe a little not underrated. It's a little exciting.
Would you assume that Aaron Gordon guards Ant if that series comes to fruition?
What's interesting about that one is who guards Jokic is the first question I have, because teams that have the most success against Jokic tend to put a lesser defender on Jokic. In this case, that would be Karl-Anthony Towns, and then use their rim protector on Aaron Gordon to come over and block shots and then you match up accordingly. So I don't know how Minnesota would try to do that. Would they not play a lot of minutes with Gobert and Towns together and try to do something else? Would Denver counter? So I don't know. I think that Aaron Gordon would likely try to guard Karl-Anthony Towns more than he would guard Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I would be curious about the Ant matchup. A lot of KCP, obviously, but just how they would try to sort that out. That's compelling to me. Yeah, the drive's part of what the Thunder do, and that's kind of all they try to do.
It's actually all they do. Yeah, it's their offense.
4 guards, hand it off a million times until you get a lane and take it to the rim. That works. And the thing about a team like that is when they do one thing so much that they're good at, in the playoffs, that's harder to do, right? Like when a team can really laser in on your strategies. So, yeah, that'll be a fun one. I will take the Nuggets in 5 or less games, maybe 4. I will also take the Bucks in 5 or less games. We haven't even talked about the compelling side of that one.
Honestly, that side doesn't matter. That side, let's take Bucks in 4 and call it good.
Whoa, you got to let me do my stat because the 2021 first round, Bucks Heat, Bucks 4, Heat 0, 2022 first round, Bucks 4, Bulls 1. They're ready for either of these teams. Giannis is playing great. Even if Chris Middleton's not 100%, I mean, they could just they're just better. They're so good on defense. They're huge. The Heat might have some size, I guess, to be annoying, but I mean, I just can't see either of these teams doing well.
Agreed.
Let's take a quick little break and then head over to talk about some of these Western Conference first round games. Before we do so, though, got to name the Nissan Most Electric Player of the Week. And through our 4 playing games so far, the answer for me has to be Mr. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 32 points, a ridiculous number of them coming in the second half. One of the craziest deceleration layups to ice the game that I've ever seen in that Thunder Pelicans game. 32, 5, and 3 he finishes with in the win. Shai this week, electric, brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, stunningly powerful, and elegantly powerful. All like the Nissan 2023 Nissan Ariya, a car that delivers on duality, a combination of fierceness and elegance. Beautiful but strong. It's the perfect SUV crossover. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin you to your seat power and premium intelligence all into one electric vehicle. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the electric vehicle for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every single day for your second listen. Locked On NBA game to game, except there was no games last night. So instead, listen to Locked On Nuggets to hear Adam and Matt Moore talk about the Denver Nuggets and their upcoming playoff series against TBD from the 8-10 play-in game in the West. Speaking of the West, lots of interesting series out there. The other 3 are settled. We'll just go chronologically 2, 3, 4. So 2-7 Grizzlies, Lakers. This game probably won't get any coverage on TV or anything like that. No real power brokers at stake here. Nobody who's popular amongst the NBA discourse. And all jokes aside, this will be a fun series. One team that showed they were the only team that could beat them last year was the champs. One team that has a several-time champ. It's going to be fascinating to see if this new look Lakers team can pull it off. What's your most compelling matchup here, Adam?
Well, first of all, before we get to compelling matchup, is Shannon Sharp going to be at this game? Like, will he be there?
The Lakers are going to give him a spot on the bench.
I mean, would that be like so distracting if he was sitting courtside or if he was at the game? I think it would be. I think it would be.
The fact that we're talking about this is everything I hate about the NBA.
Well, there you go.
Yes, he will be there.
Here we talk about storylines you hate. Here's one of I have 2 compelling matchups here: Jaren Jackson Jr. versus foul trouble. Because what happens when you have one of the best defensive players, maybe the best defensive player in the NBA, but somebody who can be a little foul prone, going up against a team that just draws fouls in their sleep. They just walk. In fact, the Lakers are already in the bonus. The game hasn't even started yet, I think, for the bonus. So I think it's a real storyline. And then the other one, you can take whichever one you want here, but I've got, LeBron James versus Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks is I know he's like known as a caricature, but he's actually a really good defender, and he has some of the size needed to go at LeBron. He guarded him very well in their one matchup this year where those two played. I thought he did a great job on LeBron. So LeBron did not look great in that play-in. That was a game that for his entire career, LeBron has taken over down the stretch and dominated. Now, he did make the game-winning play, but he just doesn't he looks injured to me, or that he's lost a step, or both. So can Dylan Brooks actually neutralize him and guard him? That to me is the great matchup.
Can Dylan Brooks be Lance Stevenson, right?
Well, yes.
That's kind of what
that's right.
That's what you want, right? Like,
Yeah.
look, man, like Lance didn't actually slow LeBron down that much back then, but
Oh,
did enough that it was talked about and part of the series and part of the thinking, like it matters. And yeah, that'll be a big part of this. Look, I think this series is going to be fascinating because a lot of the Grizzlies' identity year after year has been about this possession game, right? We're going to turn you over a million times. We're going to get in a billion offensive rebounds, and we're going to take 8 more shots than you, and the game's over, and that's going to help us. Well, they don't have Steven Adams. And I think when you lose, look, they've still been playing well without him, but like that's a big part of your identity that changes what you can do at the highest level. Sure, they still have a lot of talent, but you're going to have to adjust at center. They're going to have to adjust the way they crash the glass. And Lakers, if they can play good transition defense, like they might be able to just keep up in this. Their half-court defense is pretty good. So the stylistic clash is fascinating to me. I think you nailed a lot of the interesting ones. Like the Lakers never foul. They take 26 free throws a game. Jaren Jackson's going to be very, very important in this one. What's funny? What's so funny, Adam?
Jaren Jackson Jr. versus Anthony Davis is a great matchup.
Yeah.
I would love to see it, and I hope foul trouble doesn't become a storyline, but it will.
It definitely will. John Morant's going to have to be great, I think. I mean, obviously stars have to be great to win series, but he is, the toughest matchup by far for the Lakers positionally too. Like they don't have awesome perimeter defender guards, and so I think Ja can get wherever he wants. Can he score? Can he distribute from those spots? We'll see. 3-6, my favorite first round series in the NBA. I don't know where you are on this, Adam. The Warriors and the Kings. Why is it my favorite? Well, this is just perfect if you're the Kings. You finally make it after 16 years. You get the reigning champs. That's just cool. That's just cool. What's compelling to you about this one?
I'm just interested in seeing, number one, this Warriors team. You could tell me anything. Are they good? Are they bad? We don't know. Are they an offensive team? Are they a defensive team? There's just this whole season has felt like they're one of the 5 or 6 teams who didn't show anything in the regular season that we know they're capable of. But for me, if I whittled it down, the Warriors defense versus the Kings offense. The Kings offense has been so good. But if a team stops you in the playoffs after you've been good all year, it's really scary. Last year, Denver couldn't get any stops on the Warriors, but Denver did score on them. I'm curious to see if the Kings can score at the same clip, if they can maintain their regular season efficiency. If so, I think they have a real chance. Everybody's writing the Kings off. I don't think you should, but if you do see game 1 and the Kings just can't score like they have been, I do think it'll get in their heads.
Yeah, I was about to say the in their heads thing, like pretend De'Aaron Fox starts 1 for 4 or 1 for 5. Like that's his first playoff game ever. Like that immediately he's going to start thinking a little bit about every single shot he takes, if that's the right decision or not, what the next play needs to be. So I'll be fascinated to see how lots of Kings players fall into that category. Like Herter's been there before, Sabonis has, but in general, it's a new environment and things like that. But I agree that they're being a little overlooked. Like, yeah, their defense isn't great, but they're also the best offense by offensive rating ever in the history of basketball. And sure, offense is way up, but they were still the cream of the crop this year. So I will be endlessly fascinated by a million little things in this series, but I think it'll just be, can Draymond and co-design a system that breaks up these Sabonis DHOs, right? Like that is so much what the Kings do. It's not rocket science. It's not something new. I'm telling you here, but if you can slow that down, make them get to action number 2 or play number 2 over and over again, it's going to be way harder for them to be the team that they've been all season. And like the same goes on the other side for the Kings. If they can get to that and get to their plays over and over, they're going to look great. So that one play could have a lot to do with this series.
Yeah, I agree.
I wish Paul George was playing. This would be my favorite series if Paul George was playing, but he's not. Suns, Clippers. I think the Suns have Kevin Durant. That's what I've been told since February. I have not seen them play with him yet, just because it only happened 6 times. What is compelling to you about this series?
I actually think this series is more compelling than people think, and I'm not a big Clippers believer, but let's just go through it. I think there's a KD Russ factor here, which is kind of interesting.
Yes.
I mean, you get Russell Westbrook versus Kevin Durant. There's always a little bit of bad blood and edge to that one, so let's turn it up a little bit. I think the Clippers have a huge depth advantage. I mean, let's face it, the Suns have 4 good players, 4 great players. And then they have a bunch of guys that I don't know that you can really count on. Josh Okogie to really make plays he's been a solid guy. He plays great defense, very athletic, hustles hard, and has been knocking down shots. But is he going to knock down shots in pivotal moments of the series? Let's find out. Meanwhile, the Clippers have a lot of guys who can play and have been there before. So depth. And then, of course, KD versus Kawhi.
Yeah.
If you want to make a case for the Clippers in this one, okay, depth is going to balance things out. Maybe the Suns have a better big punch, but they, as soon as you go to your bench and start staggering lineups, the Clippers have an advantage. But for me, if you get to clutch time, does Kawhi Leonard guard Kevin Durant? And does he still have that in him? Because I'm not sure anybody can guard Kevin Durant. In fact, I would bet nobody can guard Kevin Durant. But I am kind of curious to see Kawhi try.
Yeah, I will be too. And if he does, then it's like, well, someone has to guard Devin Booker, and that maybe they try Robert Covington. Like, I hate to
They got
say that
guys. They've got enough guys, enough bodies.
I hate to say that I even looked at this, but the Clippers tweeted out a picture of their players in like their practice uniform colors at a practice, and Robert Covington was with the starters. So now I'm thinking about what these matchups like. That's such like a media member way of looking at social media pictures. I think. We'll see what end up happening here, but that's part of the Clippers' depth advantage is like they don't have anyone to stop Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but they have a lot of people who can try, and I suppose that matters somewhat. And look, the Suns are interesting to me because they have 4 great players, but like if Okogie and Torrey Craig and Damian Lee, like if they hit their shots, they just win the championship. Like it's kind of that simple with that team. It's not that simple.
They're not going to hit the shots though. Like, I mean, if I say hit those shots, I just mean they make an average number of them, 38%, 37% of the open threes. But they're not going to make all of them. I do think that there is a little bit of like the Suns are great, but there is a little bit of let's see. I mean, they played the portion of the season together. Those 6 games, I think it was actually 8. But those 8 games, they played them when half the NBA had already taken their foot off the gas pedal, right? Let's see what happens when we get in the pressure. And by the way, if I give you one player that I think is most interesting here, or a crazy wild X factor, let's see Bones Highland in a playoff game. The Suns don't have a ton of depth. I'm not really worried about their bench. Bones Highland isn't exactly a consistent player. I don't know. Game 1, does he give you 3 threes in the third quarter? Does he just get hot from 3 and kind of change the temperature of the game? If he does, I think the Clippers can steal one.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, right? When the Suns have 2 of their stars out and they're across from Norm Powell and Marcus Morris and Ivica Zubac. And like that's tough. That's still a tough matchup. So we'll see. Let's go to the East, where the first round is a little more clear outside of one series, but still some compelling storylines and matchups nonetheless. Before we get to that, though, let's talk to these people about Built Bar. Looking for a delicious snack, but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. That's Built Bar. You've got to try it if you're like me. You're trying to make healthier snack choices. I ate like 1,000 peanut butter pretzels today, but you don't want to compromise on taste. I've got just the thing for you, Built Bar and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. They taste so good, you won't even think they're good for you. You got to try them. What makes them so good? Well, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I don't know how they do it, but they taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they're healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar, a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now you don't even need to wait to get a box. You've had to order them online for years, as we've been telling you here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now you can go get them at Walmart or Sam's Club while still getting your specialty flavors at Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Get a 4-bar box of your favorite flavors there. Or if you're close to a Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box of hit flavors like brownie, batter puff, and churro puff. You can thank me later. Try Built Bar today. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, hop on over to any of the teams playing in the play-in on Friday. Locked On Bulls, Locked On Heat, Locked On Thunder, or Locked On Timberwolves to get your fix ahead of the play-in games tonight. Adam, the East playoffs, 3 of the series are just going to be bloodbaths to me. It's just
how that's why we put it in segment 3, man. The East, boring.
Should we just start with the fun one, or do you want to go
end with the fun one? Make people listen all the way through.
All right, we'll get there. 2-7. Hey, congrats to the Hawks. They've had a weird year. They fired a coach late as ever, and Trae Young is maybe not a long-term member of the Hawks, but they made it. They're in. They're the 7th seed, 2 years removed from a conference finals. None of that matters because they don't look very good this year, and they're playing perhaps the best team in the NBA, the Boston Celtics. Look, the Celtics just have a level they showed at the beginning of the season that maybe no one in the East can match. Milwaukee, maybe. And they just have so many wing-sized guys to throw at this Hawks team. And I think any matchup with DeAndre Hunter is going to be compelling because he's wing-sized and can defend and score a little bit. And it's kind of it for the Hawks in terms of depth at that spot. Bogdan Bogdanović might have to defend the best he has in a series in his life. And they have some other wing-sized dudes they could try to trot out there. But I just think eventually that depth is going to be overwhelming and the Celtics are going to run away with it.
That was a long way of saying this is going to be a butt whooping.
Yeah, look, if Clint Capella can do what he did against the Heat and just grab every miss from his own team and play great defense, like, yeah, the Hawks will have a chance. They'll have more possessions and have a defensive backstop, but Trae Young can't guard anyone who starts on the perimeter for the Celtics. Like, I just think it's going to be easy for the Celtics to score, as it was for much of the season. So I mean, do
agree.
you think the Hawks can win a game in this series?
Yes.
Trae's got that level of offensive power, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, they've got players. They're not like a terrible team or anything, but there's a reason they are what they are this year.
I believe they were within one game of 500 for like 100 days in a row or something like that. Did you see that?
No, was that what it was?
They were like 500, then they'd win, then they'd lose 2 in a row, then they'd win. Like it took forever. They were within one game of 500 for like 2.5 months. Brad Rowland from Locked On Hawks will know that stat.
They're currently above 500, by the way. They are 42-41 currently. So
perfect.
So I think they go back down to 500 tomorrow.
Maybe Trae can go nuclear, and his pick and roll with Capella can be working, and DeJounte Murray certainly gives them a new element. But
I love this, Tony. I'm teasing. You know, I love you. It's like you're selling the NBA. You know, it's like, I got to sell this. It could be, what if this is crazy? No, come on.
Look, I know it. I know the second round is going to be awesome. The series might not be 3-6. The Nets are mercifully in the postseason after getting like 3/4 of their wins before the trade deadline. They're playing the Sixers, who have probably the MVP. Is that right to say? You might know better than I would.
I think certainly the MVP.
Yeah, the early votes look like that's going to be the case. They also have James Harden. They also have a coach who has a terrible playoff track record, as I try to sell people on the series again. Look, the Nets traded their 2 best players in February. Mikal Bridges is awesome. He plays all the time. They don't have enough. Nick Claxton's awesome at defense, but the thing he's the worst at is guarding physical centers.
Of course. I'm telling you, this is the same with the Bam Adebayos. There's a handful of these guys out there who are really good at the center position, but they're not actually centers. They're just skinny power forwards that can play. Like, he can't guard a Joel Embiid. I mean, this is I have 2 matchups here that I find interesting. One is 3-pointers. The Nets take a lot of 3-pointers. Almost half their shots are threes. And if they just get hot, I mean, there's always a chance of just let it fly, see what happens. And if you put some pressure on them in that one regard, maybe you could make this game interesting. I don't know how sustainable that is, that they get hot for 4 out of 7 games, especially early on. But we'll see. But I think the real matchup here, to me, is Joel Embiid versus NBA history. He is going up against the easiest front court matchup he could possibly imagine. They're going to be spaced out. He's going to have 100 pounds of size advantage on the interior. And I think he's going to put up some hilariously astronomical numbers.
Just so you wait until he somehow hits his head on a camera or something, like he does every postseason, and has to wear a mask for the rest of the series. Yeah, look, actual basketball-wise, Harden versus Mikal Bridges, sneakily a super fun match.
It's a great defensive player to be able to throw on him, for sure.
And so that could change things, but also like Tyrese Maxey can just break down the rest of the defenders who aren't any good. Spencer Dinwiddie versus the narratives being thrown at him, also interesting. He's going to have to play pretty well after how he's been talking.
He's a good player, though. You know what?
Yeah, he is a good player. But you can't sail that and then just suck for 4 games. Like,
that's true. That's true. That's a good point.
You can't do that. The interesting one, Knicks Cavs. A lot of I don't even know what to call this. This is an advanced stats. Like, point differential is not an advanced stat, but like non-traditional ways of evaluating teams, I guess. They're like, hey, this Cleveland team is amazing. Like, this team is awesome. And they are really unique, and they also don't have any wings. And so they're a very interesting team in the modern NBA. The Knicks surged late. Jalen Brunson was awesome. Julius Randle's a little injured, and that's where a compelling thing.
I know, right away.
Julius Randle versus himself, I guess. Can he be ready to go at a high level? Because if he's not, the Knicks just aren't as good. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat that. But the Knicks do have a lot of guards who defend really well, or at least are really pesky and annoying. Emmanuel Quickly versus any Cavs guard, Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, will be fascinating. Jalen Brunson can light it up. Like, that backcourt matchup will be so compelling to me.
It will be. I mean, this is one of them. Like, even just Brunson versus Donovan Mitchell, if you want to just – I don't know how much they'll guard each other, but who can have the better series? This is a big spot for Jalen Brunson to really – what a prove-it year he's had in terms of, a lot of people skeptical. Was he worth the contract? Is he worth this or that? And he's looked every bit of it, but now's where you really make your name. And going up against a guy in Donovan Mitchell, who's sort of in that tier of, thought of one tier below the top tier of, the Bookers and the Steph Currys and that Dame Lillards. He's thought of just a little bit below that. So I think it's a big narrative one for both of those guys in terms of, hey, here's an opportunity to go out and show that you're the best guard on the court in a matchup that features some good guards, and that'll be huge. But I also just like the defense-offense matchup here. I will say I like the series. I think it can go either way. But if you were asking me to pick, I would feel pretty confident picking the Cleveland Cavaliers. You mentioned all the positive indicators. I actually think Cleveland's a little underrated. They're a very good team. They don't have some great wings. But I think they're a great team. I think the Knicks are a great regular season team. So I kind of expect this one to be a little bit more – I think it'll be exciting, but maybe not a long series.
Adam, I have some bummer news. I just got a text. We've been fired for not talking about Donovan Mitchell versus New York that tried to trade for him immediately off the jump talking about this series.
Oh, no.
That will be interesting, I guess. After like one game, I'm sure that narrative will die. Yeah, like the Cavs to me are so fascinating. Like every time the Pacers played them, to go back to the team I cover, I would always ask guys at the game, like, what's it like going against this team where just like there's no room in the paint? Because they're just huge. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley are huge. Isaac Okoro is so stout. Like it's just, you get in the paint and you're like, where do I go? Where do I throw the ball? And so there's Mobley won't win Defensive Player of the Year, but he's going to be in that mix. And Jared Allen's awesome. Like, that is so tough to overcome for any team. And so I agree with you. The Knicks might be a little more regular season than playoffs. We'll see. But that alone is why I think would pick the Cavs. Not like convincingly, but I think they're going to win the series. All the indicators have to matter. Why is points per possession an advanced stat and points per game is
I know, that actually is a funny one. That's a good one. Yeah.
It always blows
my
mind.
The line between advanced stat and non-advanced stat is funny.
Points scored over possessions had. Oh, that's tricky, man. Division is brutal for people.
It's actually not even, if you think about a triple-double as an advanced stat, it's like combining stats here. Like, hold on. You mean there's 3 different stats? Double. I can't do it, man. This is
I'm lost. We already got fired. We could say whatever we want for the rest of the show. So you can follow Adam at Adam_Mares and listen at Locked On Nuggets. Top seed in the West. It's going to be a fun team to watch this year. I wouldn't say a lot on the line for the Nuggets, but certainly an interesting year just given the buildup they've had to being number 1 to see how they do.
You can say it. There's a lot on the line for the Nuggets, but I think they're ready. I think they're ready to prove it. I'm excited that there's so many people down in Denver. I think it's a perfect spot for them to be in.
I will not be doubting Denver. I was the only one who hopped on our Locked On NBA trade deadline show when the Suns got Durant. And I said, are the Suns the best team in the West? Denver's pretty good. For a team not in the playoffs, you want to hear more about the Pacers and their upcoming offseason where they have more draft picks than available roster spots. Locked On Pacers is the way to go. Lots of coverage there from me about that team. Kevin Pritchard, their president, said their offseason will be, quote, nuts. So we'll see what's going to happen to the Indiana basketball team. We'll have more at Locked On Pacers. Thank you guys for listening. Have a fantastic weekend. Jackson Gatlin back with the biggest stories in the NBA on Monday. He'll see you then.